Hey everyone, welcome back to the Yellow Door podcast where we gain new perspectives, challenge existing beliefs, and learn life hacks from others to unlock growth at the point of life we are at. I am Sonam Mahajan, a mindfulness teacher and life coach, and today I'm in conversation with Abhi Chaudhuri, someone I've known for over 20 years. He was born in India, he grew up in the US, and now he lives in Zurich with his wife Laura and their adorable baby girl Mira. Abhi has spent most of his 16-year project management career in early stage startups in the Silicon Valley, and in his spare time, he enjoys skiing, running, and traveling. I'm thrilled to be having this conversation with him after such a long time, and I look forward to you all joining us. So let's jump right into it. Hi, Abhi. Welcome to the Yellow Door podcast. Lovely to have you and be doing this together after over 20 years. We've known each other now.
Thank you.
Abhi, of course, we go back a long way, and this is a conversation I've been really wanting to have with you. You know, when we knew each other back when you were, say, 13 to 15 years of age, and at that time, and we had these conversations, you had this sense of clarity and vision towards the kind of life that you wanted to live. You also had a sense of the kind of education you wanted. And you had that great determination and that strong desire. And it was a very individual desire. It was not something that was, put on through your parents. It was something that you really desired. And having that clarity at such an early age isn't something that we tend to see or experience much. So I'm really intrigued by, how that happened or why you felt that way very early in life. And I'd love to take a sneak peek and talk about that. So if we could, Abhi, talk about what the backdrop was like for us to understand how you grew up, what the upbringing was like, and how did the move to Delhi happen? And then we'll get into some of that as well.
Yeah, sounds good. So I don't know where it came from. I just know that I always wanted things to be better. And so I had grown up, my dad was in the army and he had retired when I was, I think, 3 years old, but we never got out of the habit of moving. So every couple of years we would be moving. And I think I was counting that by the time I was in eighth grade, or by the time I was in ninth grade, I had been in like 5 or 6 schools already. And, my dad was retired army officer, so he didn't make a ton of money. I would say like we were maybe lower middle class. And I was going to government schools like Kendra Vidyalayas in kind of all over India. And I'd been to a couple of Kendra Vidyalayas that were actually quite good. Like I really liked the schools. We had good teachers and things like that. But then when we moved to Calcutta in sixth grade, it was like a nightmare of a school that I was attending for 3 years. And I had friends, and I'm actually still pretty close with a lot of people I went to school with there. But the school itself was like something out of a nightmare. The roof leaked in the monsoon period, and we had like no playground. We would kick off these kind of footrests from benches to play cricket, and like teachers would beat students quite regularly. Like these were things that were super normal.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that there was something that was different. I just knew that I wanted things to be better. And I had been visiting my brother after eighth grade in Delhi. My brother's quite a bit older than me, so he's 12 years older. And he told me about the school, Vasant Valley, and it's this new kind of school in Delhi. And he showed me this article, I think it was in the Times of India or something like that, about Vasant Valley and like how amazing it was and trying to do new things. And I was so excited, that, okay, there's a possibility that I can live with my brother and go to this much better school. And at that time, like Vasant Valley was so expensive for us. Like it was, I think, a third of my father's retirement. And I was going to have to live away from my parents. I was 13 or 14, but I just wanted something better.
And if I can pause you here, right? When you say better, there seems to be that there was something about getting to the best in a way.
Yeah.
Like you said, there was a lot of
Yeah.
press, and Vasant Valley, of course, being the school that it is, there could have been several other options. But even within
Yeah.
Delhi, you looked at Vasant Valley and that caught your eye. So was it somewhere
Yeah.
I really want to get into a place like this, or was it just about something better?
I think the sacrifice that was needed to make it happen was only worth it if it was the best.
And what was that process like? So you got in, and was that a challenge you feel, or were the challenges greater once you got in?
I think both. In India, changing schools is not an easy thing. And Vasant Valley class size is only 60 people for the whole class.
Right.
So it's really hard to get in, and it's so competitive. Coming from a government school, I went to a Hindi medium school, so I didn't really have a lot of practice speaking English. So
Right.
switching to an English medium school, I had to relearn social sciences entirely, right? Because I learned history, geography, civics all in Hindi.
Class 9 is when you made the move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a way in, and a massive shift, I can imagine. So what was the process like of getting in? What did you have to kind of, like you're describing, having to do some of this pre-work with language for the interview?
Yeah, to be honest, like I didn't learn a bunch for the interview itself. I didn't even process that I had to relearn all these things until I showed up to class and like started buying the books for class.
Yeah.
But the interview itself, like I remember distinctly, like clear as day, as if it was yesterday, walking into the building for the first time and just knowing that this was like where I needed to be. And it was, a weekend, so it's not like there were people, a whole bunch of people around. There were some staff around. Mr. P. Mohan was around, Mr. Kapoor was there. But I just remember like standing in that courtyard and knowing that this was the place, kind of almost like a religious experience. And then ultimately, like I had an interview with Mr. Kapoor,
Yeah.
and that was I think the moment, because I was talking to Mr. Kapoor. He asked me how I did. I said, I'm pretty sure I aced the math. The English and science, I don't think I did very well, which is what had happened. And he asked me, why should we let you join the school? And I said that because you've never had someone like me in the school. And he was a little bit taken aback. And I explained how like there's this real value in diversity. And I come from a very unique background. I've lived all over India. I've spoken many languages over the years. My dad was in the army, and I just really, really wanted to be there. And like a couple of days later, he called me and said, "All right, you're joining us July 1st."
And that's the beauty of Vasant Valley. I think that's also the beauty that Mr. Kapoor is, kind of weaved into the culture, and it's, highly known of, spoken of, and all of that. And we've had the good fortune of experiencing it as students, that he could spot that value, and, not be focusing on the English and the science and, some of the traditional stuff. And I think that just, yeah, takes me back to, we've been so fortunate to kind of be part of that system.
Yeah, for sure. Like Mr. Kapoor changed my life so many times, and like he's really been a father figure to me through a very difficult period, right? Like living away from my family. There was a period I actually had to move in with him, and I lived with him for a year. Yeah, like who would do that for a random student?
It's incredible. It's incredible. And it's his dedication. And I mean, that's, I think, the commitment one brings to what you really stand for and believe in. And it's about living it. It's not just the talk. And Abhi, tell me, what was it like? What you described, prior to your experience at Vasant Valley was different. Now, once you came into the system, what was it like to be around people who perhaps had a different life, uh, perhaps a lot of privilege? Uh, what was that experience like, and how did you, make navigate through that?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I didn't think of it as privilege. I remember my first day, so everyone's coming back from the summer, and I was talking to bunch of people, and someone was showing pictures of their family vacation to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. I had never even imagined that such a thing was possible. I didn't know people traveled internationally for vacation or like this was a thing. It just blew my mind. And I think that was the biggest moment of shock for me. Wasn't Valley had this really cool policy about uniforms and not allowing uh, jewelry and watches and things like that. So it wasn't super obvious to me until that moment
Right.
how big a gap there was. And people would have their cars parked outside all day with a driver. I was traveling by the public bus, and sometimes the bus doesn't come. Sometimes the bus is super crazy full and doesn't stop at the bus stop. And sometimes I would walk home. It was definitely an adjustment. Like things people were used to doing were very, very foreign to me. But I also tried not to pretend that it was normal
Hmm.
for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I went home and was sad that, okay, like I wish I had a car waiting outside. Like I didn't. I was so grateful for the opportunity to have like such great teachers who took interest in our lives. Like Mrs. Oberoi was my first class teacher, and she was so amazing. She was so amazing, so caring. And like knowing that I was away from my family, and yeah, like I really miss Mrs. Oberoi and Mr. Kapoor being so far away, but obviously Mrs. Oberoi passing away. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, people were just so kind.
Right. And this takes a lot. Like you're talking about walking home, you're talking about really taking in all the struggles in your stride. And these are the teenage years. How did this come naturally to you, or were you actively, consciously kind of making this possible for you? What was the mindset?
There was no other option. Like this is what it took. And I feel like I've really lived that for a lot of my life, where I feel like I do the things that need to be done. And it's not so much that I have this kind of great sense of sacrifice in the moment. When I reflect on it years later, then I feel like, wow, like that was a really tough decision, or that was a lot to go through. But like even in India, growing up, there isn't such emphasis or thoughtfulness about mental health or
Yeah.
actually expressing and acknowledging your feelings when you're going through a tough time. And certainly high school, like I went through a really, really tough time, and college as well. But I didn't have the tools to actually even express to myself what was happening.
Yeah.
I did the things that I felt like I had to do.
And
Yeah.
drive was very strong, that kind of laid a motivational foundation, and then also in enabling you to actually take the actions that you needed to. And so before, of course, we go on to the leap from school to college, what was the experience like? And I know you built some very strong bonds within school very quickly, in a span of few years, having deep relationships with people whose lives you don't instantly resonate with. Talk to me about what that was like. You talked about not needing or feeling the need to lie to yourself and say that this is normal. So uh, yeah, what was your experience of exchange with your classmates?
Wow, that's a tough question. So one thing I would say is that very quickly I realized that at least the kind of subset of people I started hanging out with were very down to earth. Aditya Basu and Umang and Digvijan, like all these folks were actually really great people, and I didn't feel that they were so different to me. And I would go hang out with them, play cricket, watch movies, like Basu introduced me. I think like the differences were I wasn't exposed to a lot of things, right? And so when I would go over to Basu's house, he would introduce me to like Blackadder, and like, different British comedies that like his family was into, and I loved it. And to me, like all of this new stuff I was experiencing was amazing. Like I remember the first time I went to Akshay's house, and the distances were so big. Like I would stay over and we would play FIFA on the computer all night. And I had never played like video games like that before. And to me, it was all like, wow, like there's so much in the world,
Mm.
like all this cool stuff
Yeah.
that is out there that I didn't know of before. My group of friends, I really appreciated, and I had very close relationships with them, and with some of their parents as well. Like being kind of out on my own. Basu's mom, Priya's mom were so, 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 so helpful. I don't know, so parent-like for me, and encouraging me to do these things and like try for these things that I didn't know even existed. And, were really audacious dreams,
Yeah.
let alone like something that was realistic. And in some cases where my own parents were, scared that I was going after something that was not possible for people like us. That okay, like this is something that works for rich kids, but not for people like us. And but they like yeah, Basu's mom, Priya's mom, they helped me so much and encouraged me and were so positive and convinced my parents that, this is something that's possible, that this is something that I can try and that I could get.
Yeah. And it takes a lot, and I'm sure you put into that relationship such that you were able to build allies in some way who were rooting for your success, and in such a short span of time. And I think, just hearing you, I think to be able to do what you've done, it takes that level of openness, curiosity, also being real and confident about your background, and acknowledging the reality of it, and then working from there. And all of this is not easy. It's easier said than done. But I think just realizing that sometimes if you really want to transform things from into, like you said, audacious dreams, then this is what it takes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that it is just how I guess it is. There's no other way, right? Like it's one thing if like kind of traditional Indian families where the kids go into the profession that their parents have, like this for like thousands of years, and it really creates this stratified class system.
Yeah.
And even today, obviously, if you are well off, if you have a business that you can kind of hand down to your kids, that's a big step up. Not that the kids still don't have to earn a lot of it, but that opportunity is available.
Yeah.
And what I saw in Vasant Valley is opportunity that would not be possible anywhere else that I could think of.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to work really hard. I just had to make it. There was no other option.
Yeah, make the most of it. And like you say, the price being paid for you in every sense was high. And yeah, just being able to convert that and make it as worth it as you can. And you did. And you did. You worked hard. Again, next step, you wanted to go abroad and study. Not having that kind of financial backing to perhaps, or resources to support you, one would say. Yet that's something you were able to do. What was that journey like?
It was stressful. So going into Vasant Valley, my mindset was that I have to do really well in the boards in the 10th grade. And there's a possibility that I have to move back to Calcutta. And if I have to do that, I must do very well in the boards. So that was kind of my first milestone.
Yeah.
And then at that point, like, so once 10th grade board started approaching, and when I say start approaching, I mean like ninth grade ended. To me, like that was my year of orientation. And then 10th grade, I knew I had to do very well because there was a chance that I had to go back.
Yeah.
And I worked really, really hard.
Yeah.
I did very well. I did better than I think anyone expected.
Mm.
Uh, and then I was ready to go back because like that was kind of the deal with my brother.
Yeah.
And my dad had come up and we went to Mr. Kapoor. This is like one of those moments. And we said, okay, Abhi is going to move back to Calcutta and we need a transfer certificate so he can join a new school.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kapoor refused. He said, there's no way he's going back.
I have goosebumps.
And yeah, yeah. And we said, like he doesn't really have a place to stay in Delhi. And he said, okay, you can move in with me. And like, I cannot express in words how grateful I am for him saying that, doing that. Like my dad was blown away.
Mm.
Yeah, like I'm tearing up just even
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, 10th grade and then 11th and 12th grade, I was pretty much made to study the sciences, right? Because in India, if you're a good student, as you know,
Yeah.
you are expected to study engineering or medicine or like some professional thing, And I didn't want to. I wanted to study history and I wanted to study humanities, and that was like just not an option for me. Because of Vasant Valley, I had this idea that I could go abroad and study something else and make a new life
Yeah.
and kind of reset. I learned that as an international student, you could get full scholarships in some colleges. So I only applied to colleges that offered full scholarships.
Yeah.
Uh, College applications cost money in the US as well, between $30 and $75, which would be insane for me. Like there's no way we would be able to pay that. So I only applied to places that would waive fee.
Yeah.
And then I knew, okay, there's the SATs. I'd taken a trial SAT. So I knew generally what was needed, and I felt like I could do really well on it because I was like involved a little bit in music, in sports, in obviously academics and things like that. I was pretty good. So I felt like I had a reasonable package. I had an interesting background. And then I was just like, all right, let's go for it. And so I would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, because I had to use my brother's laptop because that's where the internet connection was. So after he came home from work, so until then I would do kind of the standard schooling studies, and then between let's say 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 2 or 3 a.m. I would prepare for college applications and researching colleges, working on my essay. I think 6 months I worked on my essay and preparing for the SATs. Like I was saying before, like Priya's mom was so helpful, so encouraging. At one point, we had to use like a credit card to pay for the TOEFL exam,
Yeah.
and we didn't have one.
Mm.
And Priya's mom paid for my TOEFL exam so that like I could take that exam, right? Basu's mom helped me edit my essay, and so like all of these people
It's
helped
incredible.
so much, and I felt like I didn't have any other option but to work so hard to make this thing happen.
And it's such a nice feeling to have this kind of support around you and enabling in you and your dream. I think it's just a nice feeling to have as you work towards something as big as what you wanted.
Yeah, it's really motivating, like to know that people believe in you
Yeah.
is really, really motivating. And I think like once things started falling in place, it was a really amazing feeling for sure. And even for my parents who had been like so concerned, they were so happy and so proud of me for doing this thing that they thought was impossible.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy because like our school would start at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be up working till 2 or 3 and then get up at 7 in the morning. And at that time, everyone else is, preparing for IITs. And I think this is the thing that scared my parents is I was not. And I was kind of burning that ship. The only thing I had was to do this thing and do this thing well. I think they were right to be worried. Looking back myself, like I would be very upset at my child for taking such a big, insane risk. But I was naive, like I didn't understand the importance of a backup plan.
Mm.
So I had no backup plan. It was all in.
Yeah.
Uh, I wish it was intentional. I guess it was intentional, but I didn't quite understand
Yeah.
the risk that I was taking.
Absolutely. Abhi, with all that, and this is very early in life, right? And we're 20 years ahead now. So just looking back at the kind of model you built for yourself, the kind of person that you were, designing your life the way that you did very early on at school and college, how do you think about it now? What's the present like for you? How do you put it in context?
So I would say that I've always been a big believer in pursuing happiness. And like, eventually I learned about how like in the American Declaration of Independence, there's this concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's something I really, really identify with and really drives me of what can I do to be happy? What can I, and it's not just consumption, right? It's actually investing in yourself, investing in life, investing in difficult, painful decisions.
Yeah.
It's sacrificing, like all of those things go into the pursuit of happiness. And for me, that's been a constant throughout my life
Yeah.
and continues to be. Like I will do what it takes for me and my family, like now have a newborn, for for my wife, for our baby to have a happy life.
Mm.
And you just have to do the thing, like you just have to do the things. If
Yeah.
it's hard, doesn't matter. It's just something that has to be done. As a new dad, it's a new experience for me. We have to like wake up every couple of hours to like change the baby, put her back to sleep. But it's just like it just has to be done. Like so to me, life is kind of like that, where you have to do these things that maybe you don't want to do in the moment, but for, the growth and prosperity of yourself, of your family, you just have to do it. It doesn't matter how difficult it is.
And what you're describing is an active choice making in life daily, in line
Yeah.
with what brings you joy. And now, of course, as a unit, as a family, what would bring you all joy? Uh, and this requires a lot of self awareness as well. I mean, in order to pick, a happiness element or a happiness path, uh, you need to know what that looks like for you, what would bring you joy. And I'm sure that took some kind of internal work as well in the past few years, understanding yourself better. And I'm sure you've had incredible self-awareness even at a very young age. So, have you seen that evolution happen, or do you feel you figured yourself out pretty early in life?
No, I think it's definitely an evolution. And what you want, what will make you happy changes over time as well. Some aspects of it, right? I think the biggest challenge is identifying what will make you happy long term.
Hmm.
It's very easy to say right now what will make me happy, right? Is like a bowl of ice cream would make me really happy. But you can't really stitch those things together to have a happy life. You just have like this consumption life.
Right.
And taking the time to reflect, taking like I went to a therapist for many years, and using that time to reflect on your life, things that affected you, things that made you happy. And it's not just you, you actually have to do this kind of exercise for the people that are around you, right? Your partners, your kids, your family, your close friends, and also care about what makes them happy. And I think that's really the key.
Hmm.
In how do you move like your whole kind of
Right.
community or your whole tribe forward? and not just on a like moment to moment. That's also important, but also thinking, okay, like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, what do we, where do we want to be? And then what are the things that we need to do
Right.
for that to be true?
Absolutely. And like you said, it's about the micro steps that we're taking towards that bigger sort of vision that unfolds, of course. And yeah, it is decision making on a daily basis. Beautiful. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Abhi. Thank you so much for wrapping it up with your thoughts.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for chatting. Like it's been so awesome to connect after such a long time.
Yeah.
And like I watch the videos and podcasts and things like that that you have, and they're really awesome and really inspiring.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on it. And of course, we'll keep our conversations going. Thank you, Abhi.
Right.
I hope that conversation was useful and insightful for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feedback, comments, or anything else that you'd like to share with me. In the meantime, take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.